Well, welcome everybody to the ICT Educator webinar series. It's a place where we hope you can experience exceptional conference quality presentations and view real time and participate, or if you prefer to watch our archived sessions, we take each video and chapterize it and post it on our website along with a printed transcript of the session and any presentation slides that we have or other associated materials. And thanks to our producer, Nicole Sherman, for putting all that together on the website, which she tries to get all of it together within about a week after these sessions. And she tries to get it all there at the same time instead of just piecemeal. So in about a week from now, you'll be able to have the complete package. So we think that's really valuable. We have a lot of historic ones from last spring you might want to take a look at. Coming up in the next few weeks, you can see what's on your screen, some ones we have. I want to highlight a little bit next week's, next Friday. We'll be looking at some of our formerly DSN, now called Regional Directors of Industry Engagement. Their experience with working with K through 12s in cyber competitions, whether it's Cyber Patriot or the cyber camps or the Mayor's Cup, and how they handle that. And then we're going to split the second half of the presentation. It's going to be Dan Manson and Franz Payer from National Cyber League talk about the competitions for community college students that they're championing with their platform. And then finally, Paula Hodge will come on and talk about the Cyber Innovation Challenge in San Luis Obispo in 2020. So next week should be really exciting, but today we're going to hear a little bit about cyber competitions as well. I know Urban's got his own take on that, and the technology that Rich Weeks' organization brings to us enables a lot of wonderful things. But in order to go through the panel and introduce everybody and run that part of the show, I'd like to now introduce Sean Monson, who's our ICT statewide roving subject matter expert, who also manages the NETLAB user group. So Sean, take it away.
Thanks, Steve. I'm not sure how much roving I'm doing, but I'm happy to be here today, and I'm really grateful that Rich has agreed to come and talk to us. He's always been so supportive. This is our ICT webinar series, and specifically around virtual labs. We'll have a number of these throughout the year, and we're absolutely happy to have NDG with us today. They have done an amazing job of supporting our community colleges, and specifically Rich, who's the president of NDG, has always gone out of his way to support our NETLAB user group. So really appreciate him and what he does for us. As you probably know, NETLAB is used a lot throughout California at the community colleges. We have an active user group, and there's lots of really great content available through our NETLAB labs. Specifically today, we're going to be talking about, well, first of all, Rich is going to give us some updates on the NETLAB product. And in addition to that, we're going to talk specifically about the cyber competition elements of NETLAB. It's a great resource for us, and it's been used at some of our community colleges by our staff, by our faculty, and we have Irvin here to talk about how he's actually using these cyber competition labs for the work that he's doing. So anyway, should be a great meeting today, and there will be time for questions at the end. So if you have questions, you can either put them in the chat box or wait till the end, and we will have an opportunity to ask questions. One last thing, Nicole will put out the link to our NETLAB user group. So if you'd like to go out, if you haven't already joined, if you'd like to go out and join the NETLAB user group, you'll get on our distribution list for NETLAB. So Rich, I will turn the rest of the time over to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate that. I'm going to share my screen. Can somebody confirm you can see my screen just fine?
Yes, we can.
All right, terrific. Let me know if I flip the pages or the screen too fast for anybody, because obviously I want to share a lot of information. I'm going to pull up chat. I'm not going to try to interact on chat while I present, but I will try to give you some helpful contact informations and URLs when time allows through the chat interface, and then I'll look for questions to answer by the end of the session here today. So first thing I want to highlight, what NDG is trying to do is help the career tech education sector, and what our goal is to partner with industry to help schools, STEM high schools that have vocational programs, community colleges, and universities help people get jobs. What I really appreciate about what many of the people that are on this call do is you actually help somebody. And if you can help somebody go from low income or zero income to income that actually helps them pay their bills, especially in certain markets in the US like LA or California where we see social impact issues, it can not change only their life, but their family's life. So I really feel blessed that I've been able to do this the last 20 years. So I want to thank so many of you on this call. I recognize a lot of names on here, and I know you have cool programs, and there's even a couple of you I've talked to about your impact. I won't call them out, but you'll remember the conversation. I know an instructor that's on this call that actually took money out of his own pocket, helped homeless students, and he and I tried to figure out how to donate more to those homeless students. And what I like about NETLAB is if you host it, everything is free for your students. I love that because there's so many people that are economically challenged. All right, with that shared, that's what we hope to accomplish. I've got a couple of things I want to share with you today. We've been working hard with VMware to try to upgrade some of the offerings that we support for the VMware IT Academy. And one of the things we've done that was really successful with our partnership with Cisco is we built a micro course that teaches the basics of Linux. There were some topics that kept coming up, and we asked VMware if we could work with them to do some micro courses around those topics. And I want to go over those with you today. Those 3 micro courses, I hope, will be something that'll add a lot of value to many different classes. They're designed to be a chapter you can add to your LMS, to any course you choose to, or you can point your students to them as self-paced. Then there's several lab library updates for NetLab Plus. So if you're hosting a NetLab, I've got a lot of new labs that you can either add or you can be aware of that are coming, and I'd like to share that with you. And then I had 2 cybersecurity examples. Sean mentioned competitions. I reached out to Kelly Cottle. He supported Skills USA the last, 10 plus years, which is a very popular program. And he ran competitions for some high schools using our NetLab product. And he was going to present his Skills USA work and competitions. Unfortunately, he had a family issue come up, so he can't be here today. So I apologize for that. We'll have to reschedule Kelly. And then the baycyber.net is a website that Irvin, the wastc.org folks have stood up, but it highlights what they did this past summer. They ran a lot of summer camps and competitions, and Irvin's going to share that. It's pretty impressive what they pulled off this summer in their area. All right, so that's my agenda. Jumping right into it. We have 3 new micro courses, and I'll make sure you have a link in your chat so you don't have to write any notes, and I'm sure that Nicole will share these slides with you. Cloud and virtualization concepts. You may remember we came up with a small course we released about 2 years ago called Introduction to Virtualization. Well, we got feedback that a lot of students needed more around cloud, really what you might even call it as hyperconvergence in the current market. So we rewrote that short course, and it's now Cloud and Virtualization Concepts. We put more cloud concepts into the content. Now that short course is designed, like I said earlier, to be 1 chapter you can add to any course. You can add it to an A+ course, IT Essentials course, Introduction to Computing course, anything you want, and it's going to teach some high-level cloud concepts to your students. And I've got some examples of slide decks that we've already built for you. I'll go through those quickly, but what we've learned is really helpful for instructors if we add slide decks to these short courses. Then the other one is network virtualization concepts. Now, VMware Corporation, who we're partnering with, has been very generous to schools. You can go to their VMware IT Academy portal managed by Cavuto, and you can get a lot of ebooks and resources. This short course is not designed to teach student networking. What it is designed to do is to complement a networking course you might already have, NetPlus, Cisco, and add a chapter in that explains NSX, which is VMware's software-defined network solution. But instead of just diving into NSX, we make sure that the student gets an overview of network virtualization. Now, the first course is designed for any student that is beginning. They can know nothing, and we'll take them from zero knowledge to a little bit of understanding about cloud and virtualization. This network virtualization concepts is not for beginning students. This is designed for a networking student that's already taking some content to get exposed to how networks are being virtualized. Now, it's real important you don't throw this chapter at a beginning student with zero knowledge, because they won't get a lot of value out of it. They'll get more value out of it if they understand some networking concepts. Now, the third one is kind of near and dear to my heart. We used to work a lot with storage training because there was not a lot of storage courses that were out there. So we had a lot of really storage-centric hands-on that you could add to any course. And we're seeing where obviously a lot of people are used to storage. You use it on your phone, you use it on your computer, you back up things into the cloud. But you might not understand, if you're working towards an IT degree or an IT job, that you really need to work with storage when you get into an IT job, and you need to understand these concepts. This short chapter that can be added to any course where it'd be relevant to teach storage is designed to highlight storage concepts that a student should be familiar with. Again, this course can be added to any course, and it can be taught self-paced. So all three of these, you can enroll a student self-paced. So that's material that I think is going to be valuable and helpful. All three courses are available on this URL, ndg.tech/VMware, and I'll type it into the chat for you. So you can go out there and explore if you want. You can enroll in it, or you can click the Teach button. But that's readily available for you to start using now. Here's the URL. You can go check that, that course, all three courses out. Click on Learn if you want to enroll directly into the course. Click on Teach if you want to see the slide decks and the presentations that I'm going to cover here briefly. Now, all of these courses can be added to your own LMS. We're going to be sharing more tools so you can add a lot of content that we offer in labs right to your LMS if you so choose. And I'll kind of briefly cover that in a second. But for now, if you'll use this request form, you can ask for keys to add that content that I just covered on your LMS. And you can basically enter the key. Once you enter the key, whether it's Moodle, Canvas, whatever tool you're using for your LMS, you'll be able to integrate it into a course and your students can enroll. Now, once your students are using that content, they could come through your LMS. So obviously all the information is held at your location. We do ask them to provide an email and authenticate to us so we can support them. Now, if you click on that Teach link on that URL that I just gave you, you're going to see several slide decks. And I'm just going to cover them real quick because I think it'll give you a feel for how good the content is. So the first course teaches the basics of cloud and virtualization, which is very important to modern computing. And we stress, and we even have some labs in there, that you can use virtualization in your personal life. VMware has products that are readily free to your students if you join the VMware IT Academy. One of the most popular tools on my staff are the VMware Workstation products, because you can virtualize your operating system and back up the entire client as a virtual machine. Students probably should be taught this early on. It might save them a whole lot of headaches in the future. Then we're going to cover a lot of cloud concepts in this course. Now, obviously, we need to educate students on what is a VM. Believe it or not, we've had students in the vSphere Install, Configure, Manage, which is an advanced course, that struggle with these concepts. So we want to make sure they understand what a VM is, what a hypervisor is, what is a data center, compute systems, networks, storage, benefits of virtual data center, server virtualization, storage virtualization, network virtualization, the cloud, which is really somebody else's computer that's been put in a lot of data centers so it can scale. So all of these things will be covered at a high level. And then obviously types of cloud computing. And then we cover VMware products that enable cloud computing in many Fortune 500 companies around the world. All right, then the network virtualization concepts course. This is the slide deck from it, but not all the slides. There's 50 to 70 slides that you can cover with your students. As I mentioned, this content will cover NSX, which is a very popular virtualized software for data centers, virtualizing data centers, virtualized networks. Now, we're going to highlight why network virtualization is such a big deal. I've got some high-speed network labs that you can use, but with students, this is something that's extremely important for an IT student to understand. Networks are so critical to every virtualized data center and obviously to modern communications. So we want to educate the student on why network virtualization is changing the marketplace. Then we've educated in the last course what a hypervisor is. We're going to cover a network hypervisor, software-defined networks, then virtual networks in the physical network, so you can embed virtual networks, then virtual switches, which many of you as instructors use probably to create custom labs. We use them all the time, very important. And then how those switches can be distributed in the vSphere product. And then obviously logical switches and logical routing, and then edge routing, NAT, and NSX logical firewalls. As you can see, it's going to be pretty detailed information. That's why I say you don't want to introduce this to a zero beginning student. This would be more for a networking student to add maybe to their second course in networking, maybe a little more advanced to give them an overview once they learn protocols and networking concepts. All right, then the third course that we're making available is software-defined storage concepts. Now, this course is very similar. It's not really a perfect course for a beginning student. It's more for a student that's gotten some exposure to IT and technology. You could put it in front of a beginning student, but you would maybe have to hold their hand a little more. It's going to have a lot more information thrown at the student in a short window of time, but it's really important information to teach a student studying IT that expects to get a job. In fact, I would say if a student wasn't exposed to storage concepts in their two-year degree or whatever program they're pursuing, continuing ed, and they decide to go to an interview, they may want to take this short course before they go to the interview. If nothing else, they could talk a language to an employer that shows they're aware of these storage concepts that are important to industry. Now, obviously, all these courses need to relate to the student where they're at versus the content just jumping them right into topics. So we do cover things like local disk storage, etc. But the main focus is to talk about storage concepts that they may see if they worked in a data center or they work for a company that's providing infrastructure compute. So these three courses, as you can see, these are the slide decks made available to you on that Teach tab, are designed to help you teach students concepts that are relevant in the marketplace. And hopefully, if nothing else, they can speak the language and understand the language if they get in an interview where they're getting that first opportunity or first job. They won't be at loss if certain words are thrown around. For example, I've had IT people ask me, what does hyperconverged really mean? And quite frankly, I've heard it used in so many different ways by different vendors that I've even myself had to reread it and go, okay, what do they really mean by this? So I think this is really good material to help your students get an understanding of topics. All right, now I'm going to pause here on purpose before I go to the next section. What I'd like is if I can get some feedback. Are these short courses of value? Are these the type of things that you would like? I know Linux Unhatched was a big hit in the Cisco Networking Academy community. Will this be a big hit in your community? Is this information you value? And is this cost a lot of money? I spent a lot of my budget on this. Is this worthy of more things like this? Okay, I'm getting some very positive feedback. Thank you for that. I'd appreciate private messages too. And again, this is designed to be self-paced, so it can, like you're getting ready to teach a very complex class and you're afraid some of the students don't have the background, you can put it in your syllabus to please study this as a self-paced to make sure you understand these concepts before you come into this class. Or it could be just exposure, as Terry just typed that. That's funny. Jeeks there, Terry. Nice. As exposure to topics that they may need, as I said before they go into an interview.
Rich, this is Sean.
Yeah, Sean, go ahead.
So I think this is excellent. The way you've decided to implement this is really good in a couple of ways. First of all, there's a lot of interest at the state level right now around cloud computing and virtualization. And having this as a resource that instructors can use to add to their existing curriculum, I think is very valuable. As an instructor of data networking, we do cover network virtualization. So I think that content is going to be really valuable for those instructors that are teaching maybe the Network Plus exam certification classes and those kinds of things. So I think it's great content, and I think the way that you've implemented it as an adjunct to an existing curriculum is the right approach.
Perfect. Thanks for that feedback. That was based on just the feedback we got with Linux Unhatched being used in so many different ways with multiple courses, especially for intro to cybersecurity. I'm going to give everybody a pre-done paragraph I hear. It's the link again. And then there's the request form if you want us to give you a key to add it to your LMS. So let's dive into some information about that. So here's the URL again. It's in your chat. Please click on it. There's a Learn tab that's aimed at self-paced enroll. So we've learned that many organizations and some schools, you don't have control of your own LMS. So if you don't have control of your own LMS, you may want to point the student and let them enroll right off of our website. So that's why there's a Learn there. If you want to add it to your own LMS, we're adding tools, but what's really important is to give you an LTI key. So there's a request form I put in chat, and notice there's IOC_request_form. It's right there in chat. And you can ask us to give you a key. Now we're going to be adding some tools that it's going to make it easier for you to onboard things in your LMS, and we'll be announcing those. So if you give us a request, we'll follow it up and give you links to these so your institution can get keys from us to add these modules like this into your own LMS. And I'm really happy that VMware has allowed us to do it this way. Obviously, this is our intellectual property. We invested our funds in it, but VMware has done some really cool things. Let me share with you the courses real quick, and then I'll jump. First of all, can you see the website, the Learn and Teach on my screen? Is it shared?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So if you go into the courses, you're going to see you can navigate them. If you're familiar with Linux Unhatched, you can just navigate with a module, and your student can submit a help ticket to us. So if something's going wrong, we can help them direct. Now, all of these modules have a badge, and I want to thank VMware. I have Susan Caulfield. Let me give you Susan's information here. Susan and I and her peers worked on getting all this together for you. They're giving your student a badge, and they're covering the cost to make it free for any student to get a badge as they complete this content. So there's no reason your students that go through all your courses, if you add these modules in, can't get a badge to put on their resume for these topics. So if nothing else, a motivated student can show potential employers that they understand these concepts. And that badge, again, is ready for them to simply, at the end of the course, ask for the badge. And that's it. So that's straightforward. And in the chat, you have my peer at VMware, Susan Caulfield, who's on the call with us today. If you want to send her a private message, she's looking at the chat, I'm sure. You can ask about the VMware IT Academy program and these offerings. Now I'm going to go back to my slides try to speed it up a little bit to give everyone plenty of time. All right, we've got lots of lab updates to provide you. For a while there, we didn't have access to some of the latest vSphere labs. VMware has changed that in their program. You can do vSphere latest ICM and ONS labs. We already support 6.7. That is available to all your NetLab sites now, and we're hosting them. You can order as individual students through Cavuto to get a lab service from us, or you can set it up so it's free on your NetLab system. Again, that's my favorite because it's free. A lot of students are economically challenged. I have to charge a fee so I can recoup my compute costs. These are very I/O intensive labs, so I have to have lots of servers for these. ONS is going to come out this month. We're right now in the final stages of Q&A. We weren't committed to do these, but we did them anyway. Not many schools teach ONS, but if you do, your students really learn a lot. These are really good labs. They even get introduced to vSAN. They get introduced to a little bit of NSX. They're optimizing vSphere, which is a cornerstone for VMware's products and platforms. That's why we support ICM and ONS. vSphere is so important. All right. The VMware IT Academy program, I gave you the link a few seconds ago in the chat. You scroll in the chat. And I also gave you Susan's email, and Susan's here to chat with you. Thank you, Susan, for joining us. I know you've got a really good program, and I know you're working very hard to make it a better program. Susan, anything you want to add to this before I move on to other things we've added for the NetLab community?
No, I just want to say thanks to Rich for partnering with us for these 3 new courses. And I'm actually, I'm not super technical like many of you on the call, but I am going through the cloud and virtualization course myself. And it's really taught me a lot about the concepts and has helped me a lot just in my job personally. But if there's anything I can do for you guys beyond the 3 free courses that Rich is addressing here, or if you just want to subscribe to our software licensing program, please reach out to me and I'll be glad to help you through the process.
Yeah, Susan, your software licensing program now is under one umbrella. That's your team, correct?
That is correct. And so I think that'll hopefully resolve some of the confusion that may have been out there in the past. So I'm the contact for both programs.
Right. So if I was just using software licensing in the past, I might not have been using the content. Or vice versa. I might have been using the content, but not the software. There were 2 different doors I went through, but now it's one door. Is that inaccurate?
It's one door, but it's 2 applications. So I always tell everybody just to apply to become an academy, and then you get kind of everything. And if you decide that you want to teach ICM on down the road, you already have the teaching materials and all the resources in addition to all the software.
So Susan, you and I worked together for many years at Cisco, and we saw the power of the community colleges helping students get jobs. When you joined VMware, I said one of the things I think is underutilized by the community college is the Cavuto licensing of your software portal. Right. If I join the VMware IT Academy, my students get VMware software for free. Is that accurate?
That is correct. It's $250 to $300 to join, depending on if you use a PO or a credit card. But you get vCenter, you get NSX, which is just added. You get vSAN, workstation player. You get vSphere. It's for your entire department. So if you have 10 students, it's going to be the flat rate of $250 to $300. If you have 50 students, it's going to be the same price.
Which is a great deal because students could take these classes and then play with virtualization without paying a fee because the school joined the program.
Right.
Correct?
Yes, and even if your students all just want it for Fusion, oh yeah, Fusion's in there too, I forgot that one. Then it's just the flat fee, and every student that has a Mac can download an annual software license just for Fusion.
Anybody that's ever lost a laptop and they needed all the data, but they forgot to back it up, will absolutely love VMware's products and the fact that you taught them how to virtualize and back up their virtual machine.
That's right.
All right, so moving on, Cisco Network Academy. I know many of you on this call and Cisco programs are important. I want to highlight CCNA CyberOps is supported by your NETLAB system. CyberOps, in my opinion, is one kick-butt course from a context of teaching people relevant skills. They can learn some networking, and then they can learn cyber operations, and I believe it really makes a difference when you get an interview. So I really like this, and that's why I'm highlighting it. We have it as a lab service, but you can also host it yourself. So that's available to you from NETLAB. Our Linux courses are still extremely popular. The numbers have grown and grown. Linux Unhatched has been purposely rewritten. We rewrote it, so if you load the latest version in Cisco NetAcad, you're going to find a lot of the Linux commands and the information educate students for cybersecurity, not only for cyber ops, but if you've got to do a cybersecurity course in the modern world, more than likely you're going to deal with Kali or Onion or some product that depends on Linux commands. So we've really tried to make it a really short, self-paced or add to any course chapter to help your students know enough Linux that they can be competent in a cybersecurity class. Linux Essentials has been rewritten to add more content and align to the LPI certificate in case your students want it. LPIC 1 certification is changed. CompTIA and LPI are no longer partnering on the Linux certs. LPI's cert, in my opinion, is a little more intense. You have to pass 2 certification exams and 2 courses. CompTIA may be more attractive because it's 1 exam, 1 short course. So we're rewriting the content to be aligned to the LPIC 1. Pretty intense overview of Linux. So Linux 1, Linux 2. We haven't released the new content for Linux 2 yet, but it's aimed for November. And all of this is basically not funded. We're just doing it because we know it's the right thing, and if you know Linux, you can get a job. We do charge $29.95 for Linux 1 and Linux 2, and it's just to try to help us recover some of the costs for the virtual machines that are built into the course. All right, Cisco came out with IT Essentials, and we apologize to the audience, but we just couldn't get it in with all the other labs that we were updating and working on, and you're going to see quite a few labs here that are coming out. You'll understand why. But even though they handed it over to us, we got it when you got it. So we haven't been able to get it ready for this semester. We're aiming for January to support the new IT Essentials. We apologize if that is too slow for you, but the labs are pretty close to 6. The delta is not that big. We're still waiting on the CCNA new networking labs, but we are in meetings with Cisco. They actually use NETLAB on the curriculum team. So they're running the latest version of NETLAB VE for the Cisco team that works on the content. They actually use it to test and work on even things that'll end up in Packet Tracer. So we work closely with them. As soon as we have access to the final labs, we'll get you information. We hope we can support it in January. All right, some additional lab updates. I'm gonna go quick, and I apologize, I got so much to share. I don't know if you guys know Steve Lithicum, but Steve's a cool guy. He's a deputy sector navigator. I think he is. I don't know all the context. You guys have got so many guys doing really good things and gals doing good things in California. But Steve funded a lab library with some kind of grant out of the California, and forgive me for not knowing all the terms, but it's the California Community College Office Workforce Development that was funded this. But there were 12 labs, and we asked Steve if we could make it available to the NETLAB community. Now, when we QA'd them, we thought they needed a little bit of additional work, so we redid a lot of them and added a lot of content, and we hope you'll be happy with that. Steve gave us the right, because the way the grant was formed, we could do derivative works. So we did derivative works and improved the labs. That is ready for your NETLAB system. Now, this is really complementary to CyberOps. And I would strongly highlight, if you guys want to do more projects like this, any lab provider can work with these derivative works. We'll gladly work with you. If anybody wants to do a grant to do more labs that are missing in the marketplace, because there's a lot of things that you don't have access for labs and content, we'll work with you and distribute them. We'd love to do more like this, so we were able to work with Steve, who originally worked with Cassia. All right, we're coming out with an A+ lab update. That should be out anytime now. That's ready. Kathleen on this call from North Idaho actually supported it. So Kathleen, thanks for being the subject matter expert, but those labs are almost ready. They're in final QA review right now. Then Palo Alto's got a really nice lab library called 210. I've got Gateway and Essentials, which we'll host for free, and we give you obviously everything we do if you're a NetLab host site and let you share with any school. 210 we have to charge a fee for. It's pretty intensive. Right now we have version 8 out to you. We're getting ready to release version 9.0 to you, which is the latest labs. The delta is not real big, so don't work really hard to add it because the delta is not huge, but there is some new information in the labs. All right, this one's been a hard one for me. Red Hat Academy Labs, we put a lot of work into making a lot of extra screenshots and helpful hints. And Red Hat just released RHEL 8, which is their latest version. If you're familiar with our courses, we use a lot of Ubuntu. Red Hat, of course, would use Fedora, a lot of Fedora. We really like the fact that we're partnering with Red Hat because Red Hat's well known in enterprises, corporations. Conical would be the keepers of Ubuntu, if you will. They probably consider each other competitors. We love both because they help your students get job skills. There's going to be a change when we release this. Now, what we did last time was we edited every single lab. We gave helpful hints, screenshots. It's just not viable to sustain that. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you access to the VM as Red Hat releases it and ask you to just use the content from the Red Hat portal. Well, what that means, instead of having a pod with separate virtual machines, you're going to get the VM just like Red Hat does it. Now, the reason I had to do that, it was the amount of labor hours that it was taking to try to redo all the Red Hat content. It's just unsustainable, and the fact that we couldn't get speed to market. So we're going to try to get this out to you quickly. We're going to hire some students to do a quick QA, and then we're going to release as is RHEL 8. And I know many of you on this call may value RHEL 8 because Red Hat is really good skills for your students. If you do our Linux courses, I would encourage you to give your students a pathway to Red Hat. It's a well-known brand. IBM recently bought them. Enterprises, when they value open source, will often go to Red Hat because it's supported. So very good program. All right, moving forward, we're doing a research project that I really think is cool. If you're not familiar with it in the financial industry, especially where you're doing a lot of trading, high-speed networks is a huge deal. In the government, high speeds or networks are really big. Many of you may have read about Internet 2. Many of the Tier 1 research universities are deploying high-speed networks. National Science Foundation, Department of Energy really want to see high-speed network and infrastructure implemented across the U.S. So we started working with the University of South Carolina on some high-speed network offerings. This is not like a beginning student. This would be an add-on for your Cisco Networking Academy student that maybe is working towards CCNP. But they can be introduced to high-speed network, and you're going to get a lot of things around how to fine-tune. Because when it comes to high-speed networks, and I bet Steve knows this from his days working in the telco industry where they deployed things like this, just a little bit of jitter can be a nightmare. You can lose 80% of performance on a high-speed network just because you got a little bit of jitter or something like latency. So these labs are designed to teach an existing networking professional or someone that knows networking how to fine-tune a high-speed network. Steve, you may want to add comments to this because I know this is a big deal in industry and it's kind of hidden unless you work in that sector, but this is a huge deal. Any comments, Steve?
No, I'm just glad to see you're offering it. Thank you, Rich.
Oh, you bet. All right. On top of that, because high-speed networks, it's really important to worry about performance. We're adding labs to that for open source network monitoring labs. Now, all this is being done by a PhD professor at the University of South Carolina. We're working with them with the intention to release these labs to you. And we ran a workshop this summer and it was extremely well received. And therefore, we're going to pass this out to you. And then I don't know if any of you are into intrusion detection systems, but there's an open source product, used to be called Bro. It's been around a long time. It's now called Zeek. Probably because of Bro was not really cool as industry started adopting this, and Zeek was a little cooler brand name, but it's open source and it's intrusion detection, and you can write scripts and you can automate it. You'll look in there, there's even labs about machine learning and how to use your logs in machine learning. So this is going to be released out to all our NetLab sites. And I know Sean was asking for cybersecurity stuff. I think this is really cool stuff to give to your advanced students. Like you may have a student that's really motivated or a group of students that are going to go from CCNA and really work in industry, this would be cool things to expose them to. And you may find that some of the local employers that value networking really care about this kind of stuff. They'll be really into seeing that your student learns this. All right. With that shared, Kelly was going to present, but Irvin was kind enough to present for us. So I'm going to hand it over to Irvin. Irvin, I'm going to stop sharing and let you have the time.
Cool, thank you. Cool. So hello, everyone. So Rich asked me to talk about the summer camps and what we did with NETLAB, and I'm really happy to share. So in the last 3 years, we've been using the Air Force's summer camp material. It covered hardening operating systems and a small introduction to Cisco networking. What we found is it was tough to implement because we had to fight with IT at the many colleges to get the approval to install software and to get these virtual machines who to them were completely foreign, and they didn't know what kind of a risk they brought to their networks, along with everything else that came with running a Air Force camp. So this year we decided to make our own, and this was the result. We created a camp that didn't require IT and the colleges to figure things out, because it was all going to be done on NETLAB. It would give students the chance to see different areas of the industry, because maybe they don't want to harden operate, they don't want to be systems administrators, but maybe they really love Wireshark or love digital forensics. We wanted to give them the availability to see the different areas of cyber and hopefully pique their interest. Wanted to give also plenty of time for colleges to talk about their programs and have that as part of the camp, and also give students access to a resource that they can access anytime. So out of that came this camp. This past year, we had 38 camps throughout the Bay Area. In the first week, or what we call introductory camp, we walk students through what we call digital footprint, basically what information is out there about you, and they had things like looking at threat maps, looking at social sleuth activities, phishing, and securing their phones. On the second day, they went into NETLAB. We had a malware activity. We actually let the students work with WannaCry, the ransomware, the infamous ransomware. We, again, a Windows XP machine on NETLAB, completely blocked out of the internet so they could infect it and disinfect. We gave them the tool to undo the damage. So we're not just talking about malware, they're actually doing it. They're actually working with it. Then we did a short lecture on how to secure Windows 10, and then we went right into Linux Unhatched and had a CTF for them based on the content of Linux Unhatched. We did digital forensics, working in autopsy, working in packet tracer with, again, at the school sites, they didn't have to install autopsy, they didn't have to install packet tracer, it was all in a VM hosted on NETLAB. And same with Wireshark. In the advanced camp, we did content out of the National Cyber League, we did cryptography, we did the OAuth Juice Shop, and Splunk. Again, giving students various areas of cyber, what it looks like, what it could potentially lead for them, what will pique their interest, and so they start thinking career-wise, where can I go? And that would be the perfect fit for colleges to start talking about. So, oh, you want to go into cryptography? Well, this is what we have. Or you want to go into data analysis, like with Splunk? Well, these are the classes that we have. These are the next steps, and so on. The lessons that we learned. Number one, at our scale of this, and actually it was these, plus we did a camp at Butte College, at Hesperia High School, and Valencia while we did this. The big first lesson that we learned was NETLAB needs to have SSDs. If like us, you have everybody connecting to Cabrillo to access NETLAB, mechanical spinning drives are not the way to go. A huge thanks to Rich Weeks and Jason Zeller. They let us use their Fort Hay server that is full SSDs. So I was able to send a number of camps their way and balance out between our NetLab and theirs. So the load was less and all the students loved it. Again, working with NetLab as our foundation, it allowed us to do all these different programs, all these different pieces of software, and not have to fight IT, the local IT, which the local IT is completely right. I mean, who really wants Wireshark running on their school network? Not many places. Or having a vulnerable web application. I mean, that can open some holes and cause some problems, but doing it all on NetLab, no problem. Nobody had a complaint because it's all in the browser and it's not happening there. The other lesson that we learned is working with our NetLab admin to be okay with opening pods out to the internet. One of the big things that you see here is we did a lot of capture the flag because we wanted the students to get a feel for how to do that, since the industry is doing a lot of capture the flags right now. There's a company that is whose name is slipping out of my mind, who, in order to get an interview, you have to pass their CTF. So we really want to ingrain that this is what industry is doing right now. So let's get you acclimated with that. And again, we didn't want the students to download files to the local machines, so they had to access the CTF through NetLab out to the internet. Any questions on the summer camp?
Hey, Irvin, it's Sean.
Yes.
So, yeah, I had a couple of questions, actually. NDG didn't have any problem giving you internet access from their locally hosted pods?
Correct.
Okay, that's good, because as you mentioned, that's been a trouble spot with our community colleges in the past. The other thing I wanted to find out is, this looks like a great program, by the way. I can tell you guys did a lot of work on this. Is this something that is leverageable to our other NetLab host locations? So is this something that we might be able to use at our other NetLab locations and other community colleges that might be able to leverage it?
Yes. For example, in intro camp, these 3 days, the students are working on the same virtual machine. In advanced camp, it is also one image. It's Cali with the juice shop already loaded. And then for the Friday CTF, we had a separate image. So in total, you're looking at about 4 virtual, well, plus the WannaCry VM. So yeah, about 4 to 5 images that easy to redeploy.
Well, so the cool part of this is that it's hosted at NDG in the cloud, right, versus at the local community colleges. Rich, is this something that NDG could offer for other community colleges as well, and maybe offer it as a service to California community colleges in general? Or I don't want to put you on the spot right here, and it's probably something that you might want to think about. But I do find value in this, and I'm sure that other community colleges in California would find value in a cloud-based solution to their week-long cybersecurity camps.
We should schedule a meeting with you and Steve and some influential contacts like Richard, because yes, technically we can pull it off, but here's my big problem, Sean. Like the Linux courses, like the VMware courses, like your vision for us hosting it, what I find is that the funding available by charging individual students will not aggregate it and sustain it. In other words, there's so much labor cost and so much infrastructure cost that we can only carry so much for free. So technically we can do it, but from a from a budget perspective, it just crushes us because we're doing so much stuff for free that every new project we add, how do we sustain those other projects? We can only rob from Paul so much to pay Peter. That's been the challenge in this sector. And I hope no one's offended by that, but we're actually already in the process of filing to be a nonprofit because we just can't see how to sustain in this sector the way we've done for 20 years, trying to give everything we can for either free or low cost. So I share that openly with everybody on the call, not to be difficult, but just to tell you, yes, technically we can pull it off. Budget-wise, I'm not sure we can. Now, we've got some new technology we deployed that allows us to turn a site into a regional hub and then aggregate those hubs into a cloud, which sounds sexy. It is, but it's technically basically creating an academic cloud. So again, technically viable, budget-wise is the problem in this sector. And I hope that doesn't surprise anyone. I'll share with you all, I get calls from companies that see the prices we offer to schools and ask me if we can sell it to them. And I have to say, no, we can't because we're subsidizing it. I hope that makes sense, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a regionally based budget model that we could look at in terms of offering these kinds of services to regions, and I think it's absolutely something we could look at if a region decided that they wanted to take advantage of these. There's probably funding there that could be made available to work on a regionally based model, if that makes sense.
It does. What I love about NETLAB is once you set up that lab, your students can do all kinds of programs and never pay another fee. That's what I really like about it. If we go to host it, you got to pay the data center you put it in, you got to pay the cloud provider.
Yeah.
The dirty little secret is it costs you more. What you actually could pay for the server and host it in a rack cheaper than you can buy it out of the cloud for some of these learning modules, if that makes sense.
Well, I think this is a real opportunity, and Sean, maybe you and Rich and Irvin could identify kind of what that package might look like. We can certainly play a role statewide with the ICT sector to get the word out and promote it and endorse it as a wise use of strong workforce program funds, and that could get things going. But we have to have something to kind of show to people and say, here are the 3 flavors or whatever, and do that. So I think it'd be great to follow up on that.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt, Irvin. This is great stuff. I know you got more stuff to share.
Yeah, no problem. I like fielding in questions. But yeah, on the back end, it's really 4 to 5 virtual machines with only one of them disconnected from the internet, the WannaCry one, and everything else connected out to the internet. The other things that we're doing with NETLAB is competitions. Where we have 2 regionals this year, a bug bounty and what we're calling disaster. All the contests that we tell students to participate in, we always point to NETLAB as a training source. Just because the labs and easy for anybody and everybody to play. We're going to run our first community college competition. And again, we're going to host it up on NETLAB. This is not a red team, blue team, but purple team, because the school teams have 3 defenders, 3 attackers on each side, so they need to attack each other, and the points are given by uptime for resources. And yeah, I had my team look at Google Cloud and look at DigitalOcean as possible places to host, and we just keep coming back to NETLAB. Just because, it's cheaper, number one, and we have control over what we can do. So we can put routers, we can put extra resources into a pod and have the systems attack each other and not have other issues because we can see everything that's happening. Yeah, we're gonna do this in a couple weeks, actually. We're gonna start this competition. I don't see any questions in the chat, but yeah, I'm open to any questions about the summer camp content. About like I said, on the back end, it's it was very easy. We just had to duplicate it about 64 times for each. So that way we could have enough pods and enough computers for enough virtual machines for every student at all the camps.
Hey, Irvin, can you share with everybody how many students you impacted, how many camps you were in, and you know, what was the exposure for the community colleges? Because I believe it was an articulation model to encourage students to realize their community college was a great resource. Can you share that?
So we have 38 camps. We impacted 1,200 students, without counting the Butte College, the Hesperia and Valencia students. Just case in point, Santa Rosa really loved the digital forensics section. They spent way more time than they should have on it because their students loved it. As far as the impact, it's definitely paying off. We're seeing more students come in to play the competitions this year. We don't have to teach them how to use NETLAB. That was one of our early struggles last year. This year, a lot of the students were already connected to it. So when I gave them new NETLAB logins, they just ran right in and started working away. It's been awesome, to say the least. It's been awesome to be able to use NETLAB and impact these students and show them that they have options, that they can see themselves in one of these areas and go from there, and be able to have that hands-on work with things like Wireshark and Wireshark, Splunk, and all the other tools.
Steve, if okay with you, I know we're about to end here in a few minutes. I'll stay online for 10 minutes if that's okay with you and Nicole to answer any questions. I know a lot of the folks on this list and they may want to chat.
That's perfectly fine. I think in wrapping up, the observation I keep coming back to is how these competitions are one of the most passionate and engaging things for students to do. And we look at how to train people and keep that cohesiveness, the cohorts, the focus on the future and that engagement going, and the competitions just do it well. I've looked at a lot of other competitions too, whether it's robotics or maker or whatever, and there's just something about these cyber related competitions that have really hooked people. And Irvin, what you guys are doing in terms of advancing the sophistication of it and making it more complex, I mean, it had to happen. I'm glad you guys are leading the charge on that. And what you've told us today about the value of the NETLAB solution in doing that is, answers a key problem. How do you offer it on a campus with the IT folks having their, logical objections? And thank you so much for working that out and sharing with everybody here what that is. I'm going to go ahead now and leave it to Sean to close up if you have any other comments, and we'll go ahead and leave this open for about 10 minutes for anyone to get in touch with Rich or Irvin, and I want to thank Susan Cofield as well from VMware for her contributions, and it's been a great session. Anything other final thoughts, Sean?
Just a couple of things. Thanks, Irvin and Rich, for kind of cracking the code on this. We appreciate the work that you've done, and I'm hoping that it can be used as a model in some of our other regions around the state. And would like to work with the two of you to see if we might be able to package this as a concept and be able to leverage it in some of our other regions. I think you've done really great work here.
Thanks. Well, thanks to Rich Weeks for creating the product, and Richard Rodiga for letting me run with this crazy idea and make it a reality.
Hey guys, I want to be really clear. I don't deserve that much credit. Gentlemen like Rich Lucas, Jason Zeller, Jason Jen, I could go on. There's like 17, 18 people that work for us that I could, so don't give me the credit, but thank you so much, Irvin. I'm blessed to get to talk to you guys regularly. So thank you, Irvin. But I want to give my coworkers a lot of credit. They work really hard.
Okay, well, that ends the official part of the meeting. I want to thank you all for attending. Remember, next week we'll be looking at other cyber competition alternatives, our focus on the K through 12s, as well as the National Cyber League. It's important that you be aware of all the options and find out what works best for your campus. And we'll just continue to try to be a source of information on all the alternatives. Thank you very much.